If you're running a medical practice in Asia right now, whether it's a physio clinic, a GP practice, an optometry office, I get it. Things probably feel a little tough. The economy's doing what it's doing, and you've got this incredible passion for helping people. You're an expert, but the business side of things can feel like you're just fighting to stay afloat. I want you to know right from the start that you're definitely not alone in feeling that way. Does this sound familiar? You're putting in longer hours, seeing more patients, but when you look at the numbers, they just don't match the effort you're pouring in. You see competitors slashing prices, patients are questioning every single cost, and there's just this constant feeling of, what's next? It's exhausting. But what if the solution isn't to work even harder? What if it's to change the way you're thinking about the problem entirely? So here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to unpack a whole new way of looking at your practice. We'll start by talking about something I call the logic trap and why our normal business instincts are often failing us right now. Then we'll get into the alchemy of trust, how to engineer an unforgettable patient experience, the psychology behind pricing, and finally we'll pull it all together into a concrete action plan for 2026. Okay, let's dive right in. The first part of any good treatment is a proper diagnosis. And here's the thing that most of us miss. The biggest problem you're facing right now probably isn't the economy. It's our very logical and very flawed reaction to it. Think about it. When we feel the pressure, our brain immediately switches to what I like to call spreadsheet thinking. We look at the numbers, right? We cut costs wherever we can, we try to make every single process more efficient, and we look at the clinic down the street and think, well, maybe if I'm just a little cheaper. It all seems so sensible, so rational, but I'm telling you, it's a trap. And this, right here, is the heart of it. When we become obsessed with pure, cold logic, we start stripping away the very things that make a patient trust us and choose us and feel good about coming back. We kill the magic. We're in the business of human care, after all, not assembling widgets. The kind of logic that's great for an assembly line can be absolutely toxic for a medical practice. And this isn't just a vague idea. Look at this fascinating real-world example. A charity sent out letters asking for donations. Now, logically, they thought if they mentioned that donations came with a tax rebate, more people would give, right? Makes sense. But the exact opposite happened. Donations dropped by over 30%. The moment they brought cold, hard finances into it, they turned a warm act of giving into a financial transaction. They killed the magic. This is why we need to stop using machine logic to solve human problems. We need to start thinking in terms of what we'll call psychologic. This is how your patients actually think and feel. It's messy, it's emotional, and it's mostly unconscious. It's the hidden operating system that explains why a warm, reassuring greeting is worth more than a discount, or why an old, torn magazine in the waiting room sends a subconscious signal that maybe you cut corners elsewhere too. So let me just ask you this, and let it sink in for a second. All of those logical, sensible, business school-approved decisions you've been making, what if they are the very things holding your practice back? Now, that might sound a little scary, but it's also incredibly liberating because it means the power to fix this is completely in your hands. So, if that spreadsheet logic is the poison, what's the antidote? It's what I call the alchemy of trust. In these uncertain times, trust isn't just some nice, fluffy concept. It is the single most valuable asset you have. It's what makes you immune to price wars and recessions. We have got to bust a major myth in our field. We tell ourselves that patients are just shopping for the fastest, cheapest option. They're not. When someone is in pain, when they're worried about their health, they are not a rational consumer. They're a vulnerable human being looking for one thing above all else: reassurance. They're looking for signs that they've come to the right place. So how do you signal that reassurance in a way that can't be faked? It's a concept called costly signaling. And it sounds a little weird, right? Costly. But it's about investing in things that seem wasteful on a spreadsheet, because that's what makes them so powerful. Because they cost you time or money or effort, they send a genuine signal that you are committed to quality and you're in this for the long haul. And let's make this really practical. A self-check-in kiosk? That's logical. It's efficient. But a real human being at the front desk who is calm and unrushed, that's a costly signal. It's the difference between an automatic door and a doorman. Spending a bit more on really nice new magazines, taking an extra 5 minutes to explain everything clearly, or making a quick follow-up call a few days after treatment, those things scream we care in a way that a 10% discount never, ever will. So here's the big takeaway for this part. If you ask a patient what they want, they'll give you a logical answer, like shorter waits or lower prices. But to build that deep, unshakable loyalty, You have to solve for how they feel. And usually, they feel uncertain, anxious, and vulnerable. Your real job is to make them feel safe, certain, and truly cared for. Okay, so we know trust and feeling are key. Now let's apply this psychologic to your most important product, the patient's actual memory of their experience with you. Because you're not just providing a service, you are literally crafting memories. Now, this next idea is an absolute game changer. It's called the peak end rule. See, our brains are kind of lazy. They don't record our experiences like a video. Instead, they just take 2 quick mental snapshots: the single most intense moment, the peak, whether it was good or bad, and the very last thing that happened. Everything else just sort of gets averaged out and forgotten. This rule gives us a super clear 3-step action plan. And listen closely, this is important. Stop trying to make everything 10% better. It's a waste of energy. Instead, number 1, find the absolute worst part of the patient experience, the lowest point, the trough, and fix it. Is it the parking, the paperwork? Whatever it is, eliminate it. Number 2, create one surprisingly great moment, a positive peak. And number 3, absolutely nail the ending. That last interaction is what they'll remember most. Let me tell you a quick story that shows why this is so important. There was a locksmith who, when he was just an apprentice, would struggle and sweat for an hour to open a lock, and people would tip him really well because they saw all the effort. But once he became a master, he could pop the same lock in 30 seconds. And you know what? The tip stopped. The outcome was faster and better, but because the effort was invisible, people didn't value it as much. It's a huge lesson. Don't let your expertise become so efficient that it looks effortless. Okay, pause for a second. I want you to mentally walk through your practice right now. That one little detail you keep meaning to fix, that magazine from 2022, the scuff mark on the wall by the door, your logical brain tells you it's trivial, but your patient's psychologic is whispering, if they can't be bothered with the small details here, what about the small details of my treatment? Here's another perfect example of how we misdiagnose the problem. We always focus on reducing waiting times, right? We think the length of the wait is the problem, but it's usually not. The real problem is the uncertainty of the wait, being stuck in limbo. An engineer who just sends a simple text saying, I'm 30 minutes away, completely changes the feeling of that wait. It's not about the time, it's about the certainty. And if you still doubt how much these tiny little things matter, get this. A huge online store used to make every customer create an account before they could buy anything. A tiny bit of friction. They added one single button that said continue as guest. And in the first year alone, sales went up by $300 million. Never, ever underestimate the power of removing one small bit of frustration. All right, let's talk about the big one. The one that can feel really uncomfortable. Pricing. This is where that logic trap is the most dangerous. Competing on price is just a race to the bottom that nobody wins. But psychologic gives us some amazing tools to get out of that race for good. This is one of the most brilliant examples of pricing psychology out there. So The Economist magazine had 2 subscription options, and predictably, most people chose the cheaper one. So they did something genius. They added a third option, a decoy, a print-only subscription for the exact same price as the print and web subscription. Now, nobody would ever choose that. It makes no sense. But it wasn't there to be chosen. It was there to make the most expensive options suddenly look like an incredible bargain. Sales for that top option shot through the roof. So how can you use this? Well, let's say you're a physiotherapist. Look at this pricing structure. The Recovery Plus package is our decoy. It's priced so ridiculously close to the top package that for an extra $25, getting the Performance Pro feels like a no-brainer. You're not cutting your prices. You're just framing the value in a much, much smarter way. Here's another really simple tactic you can use immediately. A round price, like $300, just feels made up. It feels like you just picked a number. But a precise price, like $297.50, feels like it was carefully calculated. It subtly suggests that the price is fair and based on real costs, not just pulled out of thin air. At the end of the day, this is what your entire pricing strategy is about. You're not just telling people how much something costs. You are reducing their anxiety about making a bad choice. Your pricing should make a patient feel certain that they are making the smart decision. And for someone worried about their health, that feeling of certainty is priceless. Okay, so we've talked about the logic trap, and we've explored these really powerful ideas around trust, experience, and pricing. Now let's pull it all together. This is your prescription, your actionable plan to make your practice stronger and more resilient, starting right now. First, I want you to go through your budget and find the things that seem wasteful, the things a logical accountant would tell you to cut. Maybe it's the extra time your receptionist spends with an anxious patient, or the follow-up calls you make. These are not costs. These are your best investments. Protect them. Double down on them. Second, remember that master locksmith. Please do not hide your expertise behind a veil of efficiency. Show your work. When you explain a condition, explain what you ruled out to get there. Tell them why you're recommending a certain treatment. Let them see the incredible amount of thought and care that goes into what you do. Third, I want you to become an architect of your patient's journey. Sit down and map out every single touch point. Find that one worst moment, that biggest frustration, and just fix it. Then obsess over the last interaction. Make sure every single patient leaves your practice on a high note. Fourth, and this is something you can do this week, look at your service menu. Can you redesign it to include a decoy option? Can you reframe your prices to guide people toward the option that's best for them and for you? This one single change can make a massive difference. And finally, the last point is this. Give yourself permission to obsess over the little things. The coffee you offer, the cleanliness of the bathroom, the exact words you use to say goodbye. This is not fluff. In the world of Psychologic, these trivial details are the main event. This is where the magic is. So I'll just leave you with this final question to think about. Forget the big 5-year business plan for a minute. What's one small, maybe even illogical or wasteful thing you can do this week that won't make sense on a spreadsheet, but will make one of your patients feel truly cared for, truly seen, and truly certain they made the right choice? That's where you start. Thank you so much for your time.